If you're listening to this podcast, the chances are you've gotten in your own way. You're probably no stranger to self-sabotage, and that's probably one of the reasons that's brought you into tarot, mysticism, personal growth, or any of the weird topics that I talk about. And I'm so glad you're here. I can't tell you how many patterns I have had and how much, when you reduce the mind body complex, what you see is a complex system of patterns. And one of my big questions in my own journey, my spiritual journey, my personal growth journey is, can we ever actually change? Can we ever truly change? Dig into the subconscious, dig into our history, dig into our nature and nurture, and actually change who we are and change our life. Well, I know somebody who can, and she's going to show us how. Her name is Nicole Merges, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her. Nicole Merges is the founder of Bright Soul Wellness and the creator of Roots to Rise. Release, Reclaim, Rise. A 90-day transformational program designed to help purpose-driven women get out of their own way to uncover the root cause of what's keeping them stuck, release old patterns, and rise into a life aligned with their deepest truth and power. As a root cause therapist, certified trauma-informed manifestation coach, minister, chaplain, plant-based certified coach, and member of the Tarot Mysticism Academy, Nicole blends deep spiritual wisdom, root cause therapy, energy healing, and practical manifestation tools to help her clients break free from cycles that no longer serve them. Her work guides people to move out of their own way, to rise into their purpose and power by helping them access the subconscious and heal at the root. Using an integrative approach of timeline therapy, energy healing, coaching, and intuitive guidance, Nicole helps clients uncover the source of their challenges, reclaim their wholeness, and embody lasting transformation. When she's not working with clients, Nicole loves to hike, ski, and create inspiring content on emotional freedom and soulful living on her Instagram channel, encouraging her community to embrace change as a sacred path of growth. Nicole, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Nicole, you wear so many hats, right? And I'm really excited to chat with you on the many things that you've done, the many things that you are doing, from tarot to energy healing, to ministry, all these different things. But so much of your work, centers around real deep transformation. And transformation is one of the things that got me into tarot and then into mysticism and coaching and all these amazing things. So I'm really excited for you to share with my listeners. I know a lot of my listeners are weird mystical misfits like myself that value inner transformation and personal growth. So I'm so excited that you're here to share with them. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad to be here.
Very cool. So let's jump right in because I know you have a lot of amazing things to share. How did you get into all of this, the healing, the transformation, and the work that you do today?
Honestly, Joe, it was really my own pain. I realized that I was self-sabotaging myself, repeating the same patterns over and over again, overthinking, and then my body started to break down. I started having these phantom symptoms, and the next thing I knew, I was out of a job that I thought I was going to be in the rest of my life. And so it was just me and my pain. And I did so much metaphysical work before this, but what I realized was that I was just hitting the surface. There were actually deeper things in me that I just wasn't able to shift. And I decided that it was time, I had the time now to just figure out what was going on, to do that deeper inner transformation work. And I realized that underneath all this pain was still this fear of failing, fear of success, fear of not being enough. And I really wanted to get to the root of that. So I made this decision that I was only going to do things that brought me joy. And that's when I joined Tarot Mysticism Academy, because I dabbled in tarot and it was such a great tool for me to use. And then that set me off on deeper explorations of why I was creating and recreating these patterns when I did so much work. And the shift that really changed everything was awareness. One day I woke up and I realized, like, all of these things I'm experiencing aren't personality flaws. They're actually protective responses. And that just really ignited me because I thought, well, if they're not personality flaws, I can actually shift and change how I respond and react to my life, actually. And so then I just went on a deeper exploration, and that's when I became a root cause therapist and a trauma informed manifestation coach, because those modalities helped me get to the root of what was happening. And I began to shift, and the shifts began to stick. And I transformed from there. And now I love sharing what I've learned so I can help other people get out of their own way and to really shift at the root what the cause is so that people can make lasting transformation.
Amazing. Wow. Um, it's crazy how much we get in our own way, and it's crazy how much we don't even know we get in our own way until we have that awareness. And I love that you use that word. I want to ask you about trauma, but before I do that, I want to ask you one question, and it's a really deep one because in my journey, I got into all of this because I kind of hit my own rock bottom. I was totally depressed. I was super anxious. I was with the wrong people. The lifestyle was not sustainable, and it was kind of like I was nearing towards destruction. So, what would you say was that point for you of like, oh my God, I have to change? Like, what was that big motivating pivot point for you?
Yeah, it actually was my body talking to me because I had all of these physical symptoms, and I thought, well, maybe if I just go to the doctor, but I had like every test done on me. I had blood work, scans, all of that. And they kept saying, well, nothing is wrong with you. And so I really went inside and I began to ask myself, like, what is the shift here? And I heard the shift is me. And and so I really thought, oh, I mean, that's the good news and the bad news, like the shift is me, great. And the shift is me, like, oh shit. So I had to really, that was the pivot point for me. And since I have done a lot of work, I just knew that I had to take that work to a deeper level.
Yeah, it's amazing how much the body will not let anything, like certain things it just won't let fly. It's going to hold you to every thought eventually at some point. It's such an interconnected system. So, wow.
Yes.
You mentioned trauma. Trauma is a big word now. It definitely feels like it has grown in usability and flexible. It's become more flexible in our current zeitgeist. What is your definition of trauma, and how do you see it showing up in people's lives?
Yeah, that's such a great question. You can turn anywhere. It's just become such a mainstream word, so much so that I think that people throw it around and they don't even know what they're actually mean by the word trauma. Um, a lot of people think of trauma as something like catastrophic or this life-changing event, and it is. But my definition of trauma is a little bit more broad. I think it's anything that disrupts the nervous system. It's it's unprocessed emotions that we store in the body. So it can be the catastrophic and like life-changing event, but it also can be really like the small stuff where your mom left you in the mall and you couldn't find her, and then that stuff then doesn't get processed and you play it out over and over again.
Wow. Wow. It's so funny. I think with the amount of neuroses that I've had in my life, you'd think something crazy traumatic has happened to me. And I've often kind of looked in the past and tried to see like, what was it? But then it's exactly that. It could be those small things sometimes you don't even remember that kind of get stuck. It can be very sneaky. Wow, that is interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to share a little bit of an event for me because this was really eye-opening.
Hmm.
Um, I used to hide in plain sight. One of my patterns was I would never show up fully. And I knew I had so much in me to give, but I'd go to give it and then I'd shut down and just never show myself. And when I was doing the work, uh, I realized that that stemmed from an event that happened in my life. I was a great basketball player in junior high, and I was playing a game in seventh grade, and I was probably one of the best players on the team, and we were playing this team, and I stole the ball from the opponent, dribbled all the way down the court, made this beautiful layup shot. I mean, swish through the basketball net. I was jumping up and down, so excited. I looked over at my team and they were all laughing and pointing at me. And then I looked over at the other team and they were jumping up and down. And I realized that I actually scored those 2 points for the other team. And I felt humiliated, embarrassed at the time, but I thought I got over it, right? I mean, seventh grade, that was so many years ago. And just this past year, as I was doing my work, I realized, like, oh, that is still living in my nervous system. That's the reason why I don't put myself out there. That's the reason why I hide in plain sight or don't show up fully, because my nervous system at one point tried to keep me safe, but now that I'm expressing myself more, that doesn't work anymore for me.
Oh my, oh my Ganesha. There's no sneaky. And it's like, it's wild how that one event in childhood can in some ways derail somebody completely. That's with you until you deal with it. And yeah, that's something else. I keep wondering, like, I have these very existential questions and I don't know if there are answers to them, but I always try to ask philosophers or clinicians or anyone when I can, coaches like yourself, like, what are your thoughts on the nature versus nurture? Do you think that these traumas are things that are started by life experience, or do you think that they are triggered or activated by life experience and that there are maybe hereditary or biological pre-existing patterns that kind of open up because of them, or maybe a mixture of both? I'm curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, I think my thought is a mixture of both. I think they definitely can happen in this lifetime where something happens like the basketball game and I carry with that. Um, but in my experience, these patterns can come from our nurturing, our parents, our childhood, but they can also come from our nature and who we are. They could be generational healings, maybe even past lives, or even like in the womb. I think that we're all energy, and our energy runs throughout time and space, beyond time and space. Really, if you think energy is neither created nor destroyed, then we are always expressing ourselves in energy. So I think it can come from a mixture of both.
Totally. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because and another thing is there's so many scales to trauma, right? Because sometimes I wonder if like maybe we all have some trauma when we were like amphibians first walking on the land from the sea. Maybe there's some
Yes.
residual trauma from that collectively. But then we have these other traumas of like scoring for the other team in middle school. So there are these terms, major traumas and traumas that I've heard of. Can you tell me your thoughts about them? How they're different?
Yeah, yeah. So, major traumas we tend to recognize as like accidents, life-changing events, something catastrophic. I mean, collective trauma, COVID-19 could be considered a collective trauma. And those are major traumas which can affect us and even groups of us and the collective of us. And then there's these micro traumas like the basketball game, like answering a question in school and getting it wrong, or these things where things happen to us and we don't fully process the emotion. And I've frankly experienced both major traumas and micro traumas. And in my experience, it's not really how we it's not really the magnitude of the trauma. It's really how we personally respond to the event. And so really when healing traumas, a micro trauma or a macro trauma could have differing ways that we process it. I mean, in my experience, I think I did so much work on the macro traumas that I've felt, but I didn't get to the core of those micro traumas, which were the self-sabotaging patterns that kept getting in my own way.
Wow. Wow. That it really is. I'm so curious about our, responsibility is our ability to respond. And I'm so curious about how much room we have to respond on different levels of trauma. Like for me, like I get on a plane and I've developed a phobia of flying. I'm getting over it now, but it's so wild. One day it'll like be totally frightening, and then the next day it'll be like, oh, it's no big deal. But it's literally my reaction to it that makes it what it is, and a very somatic response indeed. So I totally love your definition of trauma as an interruption. Anything that disrupts the nervous system is beautiful.
Yes.
So in healing trauma, let's talk about that. What happens when you heal micro traumas is really because I think most people expect a macro trauma, and one of the things I've learned in TMA is like, it's so common to expect like some cataclysmic horrible thing, but it is these little things that really sneakily kind of hold us back. So in micro traumas, what happens when you heal those micro traumas, and what kind of changes or outcomes have you seen for yourself or others?
Yeah, yeah, it's such a great question. You know, when we heal micro traumas, we're actually creating a shift in our subconscious and our unconscious mind. And so what happens is we start to regulate our nervous system. We start to take the reaction out and begin to respond to events. And then we start to reclaim those parts of us that we disconnected from. And what I love about working with the subconscious and the unconscious mind is that really there's nothing for us to really do on the conscious level, because all of the work we're doing is processing the emotions and working with the unconscious. And when that begins to heal, then your outer world naturally shifts, or there's a pause, like something where you've reacted so much on, and then all of a sudden the same situation comes, and then you have this pause like, oh, I actually could do this here instead of reacting. And that starts to happen more often, and we get into a flow of life. And and it's kind of like I liken it to, like, you ever have a pet, right? And you have a little kitten, and you've had this kitten, you see it every day for 3 months, right? And then you see it and you go, why haven't you grown? But then you look at a picture of the kitten, and you're like, wait, was so small then. So that's kind of how I think what happens to us is we don't necessarily realize our growth because it starts to happen naturally. We begin to respond to life with a sense of peace and trust.
Absolutely. That's so important. Yeah. And you totally get surprised when you do kind of a before and after and a comparison of, oh, what did I actually create for myself this year or the past 5 years? And a lot of people forget all the reasons they have to feel good about themselves and all their
Right.
progress. I have to ask this. I hope you don't mind, but this is the big question that I can feel my listeners already asking in their minds. So, for people listening who have had macro traumas, who have had micro traumas, who emotionally react and overthink and have that nervous system that might be on edge, well, I'm talking about partially myself and my listeners. How do we do this? How do we go into the subconscious? How do we go into the unconscious and do that work? Or how do you do it for yourself and for your clients? I know we're going to get more into that later, but I couldn't help but asking.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Well, you know, I'm just going to come back to awareness. I think that's the key. Really, that's what turned me from self-sabotage to self-trust, is to have an awareness that there is something to shift. Because
Mm,
without that awareness, um, I would still be reacting to life, right? So I think that's the number one thing. And then I think really I say you have to feel it to heal it. And sometimes, so go right in it, right? You have to go into the storm, so to speak, because if we avoid feeling it, or if we avoid not processing those unprocessed emotions, then that's when the patterns keep going over and over again. And there are processes, and I know we'll get more into that later, which can help us identify the moment when that trauma began and to heal it at the root. Because when you heal at the root, what happens is not only do we heal every other event like it, but we heal every other event like it before and after that event.
Oh, so we're doing time travel. Yes, I
Yes,
love that.
yes.
Oh, that is so cool. Okay. So, I'm thinking of like my 25-year-old self, and I'm thinking about how what the questions I used to ask about that, and that I still ask about mental health. Mental health seems to be like something that is mental illness rather is something that appears to be on the rise. What are your thoughts about mental illness, depression, anxiety? How does that fit into all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think depression, anxiety, they're just signals. They're not personal failures. They're the body's way of saying that something needs attention here. And depression and anxiety can be complex too. So I support clinical measures if that's the case, but a lot of times depression and anxiety are just our nervous system responses to uncomfortable events, things that we've experienced in the past. So I think that when we can get underneath, like what caused the depression, what caused the anxiety, we can start to heal at that level and begin to reconnect with the self, begin to choose something different consciously but we weren't able to choose before, and our body begins to regulate, and we can either manage our symptoms better, or sometimes they just shift and they soften.
Wow. Now, is that something that you've seen for yourself or your clients?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it for myself.
Amazing.
Yes. Yes. I've experienced both depression and anxiety, and I realized that for me, my depression was using my power to suppress my power. And anxiety was my fears just playing out as worry, as things that would happen, but never would happen. My fears projected out into the future.
Wow, that I totally understand that. Yeah, I love that your micro trauma comes from a perfect metaphor for literally playing against yourself. You literally scored points on the opposite team, and that developed into depression and anxiety, getting in your own way, playing for the opposite team. But you changed that with your work. That's amazing, and I'm sure your entire life changed after that.
So much so. I would not be doing this podcast with you if did not heal that part of myself.
Amazing. Totally. And I totally hear, a lot of people tell me, oh, Joe, you seem so confident. I'm like, you should have seen me 5, 10 years ago. Yeah. So a lot of this work has to do with processing emotions. And what I love what you're talking about is you're not like battling like clinicians and the clinical idea of depression and anxiety, but you're offering this other way to look at it where there is a temporal way to look at it. There's something happened which caused an experience, which disrupted the nervous system and caused a pattern. What is the best way for people to do this? What is the best way for people, the most effective way for people to process these emotions?
Yeah. Well, what I do is something called root cause therapy. And what it is, it's you go into a meditative state where I can access both your conscious mind and your subconscious mind at the same time. And through that process, we go back to the origin of where the whatever we're trying to shift began. And that could be before birth, during birth, in a past life or even generational healing. And once we get to that event, we discover what is the dominant emotion there. And then we do a process to release that emotion at the time of the event. And then with a clearer perspective of the event, with that emotion now out of the way, we can have a new perspective on the event and look at how that event actually served us, the truth of that event, the learnings that we have of that event without the emotion interfering. And then once we've gotten the learning, we go all the way back to now, the present moment, and anything in between that original event and now comes up and reprocesses and heals.
Wow. That sounds great. And it sounds like a deep and large amount of work, but necessary work and totally transformative. But actually, I mean, it doesn't really when you compare it to, we follow these different, there's so many spiritual books and so many ideas in new age spirituality and religion and self-help and self-improvement. And, every 5 years there's another fad of things to do, but it's like, this does seem to be one of those recurring themes of just going into the thing that you're afraid to go into, that probably has to do with you at a younger age, and kind of rewriting it, but not just through mantras, but really rewriting the energy, the emotion of it. That's
Mhm.
amazing that you have that technique for people. It sounds like a lot of therapy done in a much shorter amount of time. Cool.
Yeah, and you would be amazed that it's not as much work as it sounds like,
Mhm.
because it is that subconscious work. So there's not really much for me to do on the conscious level, just to be aware, right? That's my work, is to be aware.
That and actually, could you tell me how you came into this? Because I know you had done a lot of work before discovering this method and using it for yourself and your clients. Tell me how you went from the path you were on, which was longer, to this much shorter, much more effective, and much more powerful system that you've developed.
Yeah, I think the work I was doing before was all in my mind, right? And it worked to an extent. Affirmations, positive thinking. Um, I did a modality called spiritual mind treatment, which is really a form of affirmative prayer. And I would make these shifts, but it would be a lot of energy to uphold them because it was all in my mind. And what I realized is that we are way more complex than just our mind. I mean, we have our physical body, of course, but we also have our emotional body, our mental body, our energetic body, and even our spiritual body, and probably so many more bodies that we don't even know of right now and are being discovered right now. And what I realized is that it was a lot of effort to keep my thoughts positive. It was a lot of effort to say those affirmations and really believe it. And what I realized is that we are way more complex than that. And so when I began looking at the energy, our energy body, looking at what emotions kept repeating and showing up in my life, it and putting it all together, mind, body, spirit, I think that was the shift that put me on the fast track to healing.
I've heard you say these words. I love these words. There's more to it than just the mind. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Um, well, I'll give you an example. So if you think of our mind like an iceberg, 10% of the iceberg shows up above the surface of the water. So when we look at an iceberg from a ship, we're only seeing 10% of the iceberg. And I liken that to our conscious mind. But underneath the water, 90% of the iceberg is there. And that's our subconscious and our unconscious mind. And that's actually the driver of our behaviors. So when we're only paying attention to that 10% above the surface, we're not actually getting to the drivers of what creates our experience. And so that's what I mean, where there's more than just the mind, that if we look at the mind more than just the conscious mind, we can get a whole holistic picture of who we are and why we do the things that we do.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. I love that image. It makes me feel like my life and my body and my mind are just a puppet to my subconscious. When you imagine that, is that would you agree that that's partially true? And if so, how does that? Because I feel like for some people that would be like, oh damn, I'm just like all of this is just a puppet to something maybe I can control. But here you are starting to learn to control it. So that's amazing. Would you agree with that metaphor with the puppet?
Yes, but not from the standpoint of being a victim, right? I think that's important distinction. So yes, I do agree with that. And I think once we become aware, again, that key of awareness, that then we can be able to see like there's more to us than just our mind and dive into it, and that we can be the captain of our own ship and lead us into healing and what we need to feel peace with ourselves.
It's a very nuanced understanding that you have over the mind and the work that you've done for yourself and your clients, because it's, you know, so many people, and obviously I teach tarot, and tarot is one of the main things that I do, but a lot of people go into these things like tarot and a lot of new age spirituality, and it's I kind of see it as, yes, all of these tools are helpful, but it's never going to be enough unless you go into the holistic you, the full you, which involves all the subconscious and the unconscious and your history and your body and all these things that are can be very scary to go into. And here
Right.
you are doing it. So that's amazing. I'm sure many people are benefiting from that.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you about, speaking of the unconscious driver. You talk about how people get in their own way. This is something that I'm really interested in. I know it's something that I've done to myself. You know, I've seen it in my clients, the self-sabotage. Can you share the main ways that getting in your own way shows up for people?
Yes, I'll share the ways that I get in my own way because I know that there's probably so many more ways that people get in their own ways, but these are the three ways that I've really seen myself get into my own ways. And I actually can equate them to the suits of the tarot as well. Um,
Oh, fun. Very cool.
Overthinking, the swords, right? Overthinking. You know, I self-sabotaging with my mind. You know, the self-defeating thoughts, the I'm not good enough, the allowing other people's thoughts to dictate what I do rather than speaking up for myself, using my own thoughts against myself. I used to play the what if game, but play it. What if the absolute worst happened? Like, what if I fail? What if I'm successful? What if I can't do it? What if I freeze? What if, you know, all of these negative thoughts that when they would become overwhelming, and then I just wouldn't do it, and I'd move into the next one, which is avoidance. And I think that one is really about the cups, because I just wouldn't, if I didn't feel like it, I didn't do it, right? And then I would expend way more energy thinking about not doing it than it would take to just do it. And a great example of this is avoiding putting on my sneakers and exercising. Man, that I just would avoid that relationship of having a healthy body with myself, and I would not, I would just talk myself, I don't feel like it, I'm not going to do it. So I wouldn't do it, but I'd spend the whole day thinking about like what it would feel like if I would have done it. I should have exercised, I should have done this. And I realized I just spent way much energy avoiding what I was going to do, and it would have taken me less energy just to do it. And and then the other way, these sound similar, but when I would avoid it, I just wouldn't do it. But then I liken this to like the pentacles. I would procrastinate. And there's a difference because procrastinate, I would get it done, but I would do it at the last minute. It would cause so much stress in my body and I couldn't figure it out and I would get it done. And then when I got it done, it just didn't feel right because I didn't give myself enough time and energy to do it. And I used to think, well, I just, that's just the way my body works. But I realized like, it doesn't have to work that way. I don't have to do any of those things. I don't even have to listen to any of those things. I mean, I can change my response to how I show up in my life.
Amazing. You mentioned putting your shoes on and walking and doing exercise. And every time I see your Instagram, I'm seeing you walking through the most beautiful places and rivers and trees and hiking. And you're making this beautiful content about mental health. And every time I see it, I think, I bet a good portion of my followers could do this right now and it would help them. I think about how many people are like currently in a slump or feeling trapped by their own mind, by the suit of swords, whatever it is, and are, not letting themselves just take that action of like, maybe I should really get some exercise. Maybe I should go out and take a walk. And I'm not going to say that these are going to solve everything, but like that is where the healing happens. That moment, there's that little moment where the mind says, are you going to gift yourself this time today of going out and giving yourself care, doing what you need, doing what's going to help you? And it's so easy to not listen to that opportunity. It's so easy to reject it. But here you are, you accept it every time. And I love it. That's beautiful.
Oh, doing Instagram really took me out of my comfort zone. I that it's amazing to even see my growth on Instagram. And there were times where I made a commitment that that's the way I was going to show up and that was the way I was going to stretch myself. And I did it, even when I didn't feel like doing it. And now I love it. Now I think, when do I get to do it? Oh, how can I do it? So it's just that shift, and it showed up because I kept stretching myself. I kept putting myself out there.
Tell me more about that because I know so many of my listeners, they have big dreams, they're very creative, they have a lot to offer the world, but they're afraid of showing up, they're afraid of stretching themselves, and sometimes they'll make a decision like, "Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to create this," and they kind of start, but then they kind of back away. What is your advice to them?
My advice is just start, make a commitment, and keep it. And I know that sounds easy and trite, and it's not. It literally is. I'm going to stretch myself and step out of my comfort zone today. And even if you don't post it, right, you can still do it. You can still create these videos or journal or whatever it is you do to express yourself that you're stopping. Just take that one little step. Transformation happens in the moments, right? So if you're take that step over your comfort zone, you've already began to transform.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of people, when they look at transformation and when they look at growth, they expect or want it to feel easy and normal. Do you think it feels easy or normal? Cool.
No, not at all. Not at
Right.
all. Sometimes it feels like you're walking through fire, really. And I think it's because true transformation, I mean, you have to let go, right? You can't be doing the same thing over and over again. That's the definition of insanity, right? So I think of transformation as something has to be taken down or even destroyed for something new to rise. I think of it as like if you buy this beautiful wooded lot of land and you want to build your dream home on it, you can't build your dream home around the trees. You're going to have to take down the trees to find the place where you can put that foundation on and build the house. And oftentimes you take down a lot of trees, but you're actually creating the space for something new to emerge, for something new to come in. And I think that's why people get uncomfortable with transformation. Things begin to shift. Like, wait a minute, my relationship is falling apart now. Wait a minute, I just lost my job. Yes, so you have to walk through the discomfort. You have to go through that in order for those new ideas, those new insights to take root and rise.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Wow. I love that. Oh, I could tell you so many stories of myself and many of my clients, but it is not uncommon for people to perhaps subconsciously or consciously manifest some epic moment or crisis or really serious situation that forces them to make a change. And a lot of people are starting to uncover the relationship with the body. Like in your case, your body was like really like saying like, no, you have to make a change now. And luckily you listened and you did, which is great.
Right? Yes.
Um, you use the suit of swords. I love that you use the suits of the tarot to talk about the different ways that people get in their own way. And overthinking is a big one. And I would say that of all the tarot cards that appear in readings, probably the card that appears the most commonly in my readings for my clients is the Eight of Swords, which is which is interference, all about the overthinking. So, some a lot of mystics will claim that the mind, what I have found is that when you read a lot of mystical literature, because that's where I approach things from, is mysticism and non-duality. When you approach things from like a mystical perspective, the mind and time are usually very similar, sometimes the same thing, where like the mind is always operating in time because thoughts are based on past experiences or projections of possible futures. And the very ego itself is this kind of like illusion of a constant entity that is moving through time yet somehow staying the same. That's kind of essentially what the ego is, one way to look at it. So the mind
Mhm.
and time are very related. Can you talk a little bit about that in relationship to your work? And then I'd love to ask you about a little bit more about the time travel that you introduced to us earlier in timeline therapy.
Yeah. My first thought is that even though we live in the world of time, time can be an illusion. Um, and what I mean by that is it it's taken a certain amount of time to get where I'm at. But once I started realizing I was getting in my own way and self-sabotaging and started healing that, it felt like the time was moving exponentially. So once I started healing, I didn't need the 30 plus years time to change my life in the future. So I do think that we can get stuck in time. I don't have enough time, or I'm too old. That's a good one. I'm too old, right? So that's about time. But the truth is that once we find the flow of who we are and we're in sync with ourselves, time just seems to bend, or you're growing exponentially, and time is just there, but it is not the dictator of how we express ourselves or when we express ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting. What a common challenge people have is, um, I never have enough time. Oh, I don't have time to do this deep work. I don't have time to do the self-care. I don't have time to focus on this. I don't have time to invest in something that I really want to do. That's for me because I have work, I have my family, I have my obligations. What would you like to share with those people that just don't have enough time?
I would like to share using awareness, like really looking at yourself. When I say awareness, it's like really being able to see yourself objectively, to look at yourself as an observer and get curious. Like, is what I'm saying true, or is it just a belief that I'm holding, right? Is this truth or is this a belief? Because beliefs can be shifted.
Hmm.
Um, and when you're aware, you pull yourself out of fooling yourself, right? So you can see yourself objectively. And so I think that to really get in touch with what it is that you want to express, with who you are, and really latch on to that which gives you passion and joy and like fills you up with energy, and then looking at time with that in mind, because you want to get in touch with what pulls you forward, what really drives your passion, right? You want to get in touch with your wands, right? What fuels your
Mm.
fire,
Mhm.
um, because that and then if you align your thoughts with your passion, that can actually transcend your concept of time and really let you know if these are limiting beliefs that are getting in your own way, or if they're sometimes like they could be really true. And that means that then you can focus on that. Like, say you're with a parent who has a diagnosis, you know that you only have so much time. So I think if you look at time from this objective point of view with awareness, you can begin to make choices that align with your desires of what you want to create.
I love that, Nicole. You really said it. I can't tell you how many times I have seen, because we've worked with now over 600 students at Tarot Mysticism Academy. I've met people all over the globe and all different lifestyles. I have seen single mothers with multiple kids working multiple jobs do more with their free time than people that have nothing going on at all. And our relationship with time is always in the present moment. Like, yeah, there are practicalities and things to consider, and like, I love my Google Calendar. It organizes my life, and but it's like, yeah, if you what's important to you, you'll find time for. I find you'll make time for it. And it's I always like to say, like, the calendar is like a spell book. What
Yeah.
you put in the calendar, those are your priorities. And sometimes those priorities are things that you can't always choose as much as you'd like, but they are still your priorities. And yeah, that's it, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of time, can you explain what timeline therapy is and how it helps people get to the root cause? I'm so excited about this, especially, you were talking about like essentially time travel before. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I alluded to it earlier. Timeline therapy is the concept that we all have a timeline that goes from as far back as it goes. I mean, I don't even know if there's an ending, and our timeline goes as far forward as it goes, ad infinitum, perhaps. And so, using that as the model for healing allows us to get to the original event of when the patterns started happening. And so when we can get to that original event and identify what the stuck emotion is or what was happening in that event, and we begin to turn up the emotion and begin to release it. Once that's released in that time, we can begin to see the truth of that event. And then that is what is really healing, because that then we've released the event at that time. And then when we travel back to this moment of now, essentially anything from that time to this moment of now begins to rewrite itself in the subconscious. And we
Mm.
can do this in the past. Well, we can also do it in the future as well. And so travel into the future to see what our life will be like, and then taking those feelings that we have in the future, and then asking our higher self, our unconscious mind, what do I have to do now in order to get there? And so using the timeline is really a framework for the healing work and getting in touch with our emotions and being able to release them and heal the events in between that.
When you just said that, I had this macro perspective where I'm like, because I'm always looking at things from a mystic's perspective, and it's like, I bet God said that before incarnating into all of us. God's like, time will be a nice framework for me to heal and learn and experience myself, like time as a framework for pure being, existence,
Yeah.
consciousness. That is so fun. And we're all just the appendages of that process. How fun is that? Very
Yeah, and it
cool.
is a man-made concept, right? So you did say it's a framework. So I think in frameworks, then we have a model that we can work with, and I think that's really important.
Mm.
And it's not the end all be all, right? Because it is a concept, man-made concept, really, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Just as eternity works through time, we can work through time as a framework in our healing and our self-discovery. That's beautiful. Um, okay, now there's one thing I definitely want to ask you about. So, being in the spiritual community and various communities within the spiritual community, one thing that is, uh, I would say maybe even more rampant now than before, and I'm not judging it, and I say this with love because I'm totally guilty of this, but spiritual bypassing, definitely something I've done in the past, definitely something I've seen people do in personal growth, self improvement, spirituality. What are your thoughts on spiritual bypassing in change work and transformation?
Yeah, well, I think that was my mechanism to bypass the spiritual, the deeper work was to use these spiritual phrases like just think positive, or if I say enough affirmations and really feel it in my body, that will shift it. But really, I was using those tools to avoid the deeper work, and I think that's what spiritual bypassing is. I used to say, well, I'm just going to trust the universe, or maybe I'll wait for a sign, right? But the signs were coming, and I'd be like, no, it's not that sign. It's another one that's going to be even better. So I would use these spiritual placating phrases to avoid doing the deeper work. And when I realized that I was doing that, I actually thought, wait a minute, it's okay to feel, right? It's okay to be angry. It's okay to have doubts in my mind. I don't need to do all of this work to get rid of those. I can actually be whole, right? And I can accept all of myself. And I think spiritual bypassing is only when we accept part of ourself, but we start pushing away that our shadow side or that other part of ourselves that we don't want to see. So I think to the way to move through spiritual bypassing, one is be aware that you're doing it. I mean, I cannot say enough about awareness, because if you don't have awareness, you can't change. And then two is just accepting us as whole beings, that it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to have highlights and to manifest stuff and everything in between. So I really think that spiritual bypass really makes us avoid doing the deeper work, or better yet, avoid accepting all of who we are.
Mm. And that is very common. And I speak from my own experience of avoiding my own change and then surrendering to it, and the experience of many of my clients and students. And I'm sure you've seen that a lot. So, and I've had moments where I've helped people doing healing work and they've healed something and they get to a level of peace. I've literally had students tell me before, I've never felt this peace before. And then you know what happens? They disappear. And then I have some students, they get to that level of peace and they go 10 times the speed forward. So there's kind of, I've found there's this like fulcrum point when you get into the deep, years ago I was just teaching tarot, and then I started with our curriculum. We started doing some deeper work with somatic and energy healing, and then going into more straight mysticism. And for some people, it accelerates the process, but for other people, not everybody's ready for everything. Just like in my journey, I wasn't ready. There's still things now spiritually in my own development that I'm not ready for, that maybe one day I'll be ready for, or maybe not in this life, who knows. But tell me about that. Like, can you talk about why transformation can feel scary for people?
Yeah. Um, I, I definitely. So, first, I'd like to actually talk about healing, because healing is really an upward spiral. That's what I think. So, for example, uh, I I had mother issues to heal, and I would do my best and heal it. And then it would come up again. And I'd be like, wait a minute, I just healed that. Why do I have to do it again? And so I think transformation could be scary for people because it can feel like we're on a treadmill, right? And we get past it, but it comes up again. And what I realized is that healing is this upward spiral. So when we come back to that place that we thought we healed, we did heal a facet of it. Now we're just at another aspect or another layer of the onion, and that we couldn't get to if we didn't do the work before that. And so I think that sometimes having that repeating pattern can make people feel like it's just not working for me.
Hmm.
And the truth is, it is working. The other thing I think that can happen is that things begin to change, things begin to shift. Our life begins to look different. And now we have this feeling of like, I don't know where the edges are. I don't even know where the ground is. And we have to begin to recreate that in our life. And that that could be daunting and scary. And I know I have felt so vulnerable and, so exposed when that happens. But that's really a creative place for us to be in because that means that we get to decide what goes in that void. We get to put that in place. But I think it can feel so like you're just standing on marbles, right? And you're not standing on solid ground. And I think that's why people can be scared of transformation or not want to change.
Mm-hmm. For the people that are open to this type of transformation, what's the first step to real change?
Yeah, I can't say it enough. It's awareness.
Mm.
First step that you're aware that something needs to or that you want to change something. That really once you start becoming aware, um, and especially if you do it from an objective point of view, you can stop judging yourself and start like looking at your life with curiosity. Like, I wonder why this keeps showing up in my life. I wonder why keep attracting the same type of relationship. I wonder why I can never get ahead in my job. And once you start approaching yourself with awareness and curiosity, it begins to take you in different places, and it opens it up for the door for self-compassion, for love, for seeing yourself in a different light than what maybe you've held yourself in before.
Mm-hmm. For in my journey, like the awareness was definitely the start. Like it was that moment of like, oh, this is what my life can be, or will be if I don't make a change. And if I make a change, I don't know, it could be so many other things. And so many
Right.
other things was infinitely better than the other option. But what I found was awareness was the beginning. And then I did a bunch of stuff. I magically met my mentor. I read hundreds of books. I did all sorts of healing and learned all different modalities and then studied different forms of mysticism. Um, I feel like a lot of people can use help and guidance. And um, I'd love to hear about your model. You created a model called Release, Reclaim, and Rise. Can you walk us through what that means?
Yes. So once you become aware, I think the next step is just to take a step, right? So to take a step is the next step. Um, and when you find something that works for you, like this release, reclaim, rise model, then you can really get into the deeper work. So, what I use for my model is release, reclaim, and rise. And release is when we are using awareness, we're looking at our life and we're releasing what no longer serves us, what we don't need, those root causes of the patterns that keep repeating. And we do the healing work to let those things go. And when those things are gone, there's this openness, and we can get intuitive drop-ins in our mind, or these spontaneous ideas that really give us some passion and fire. And then we start saying like, oh, I used to play the piano. Now, like, I want to pick that up again. So we start reclaiming those parts of us that we left behind, or those parts of us that we ignored or thought we couldn't do. And they start to integrate back into us. And then once we start reclaiming ourselves, and then we get a sense of who we are and who we want to be, then we can begin to rise into our authentic self, to really take who we are now, to make these choices, to take action, to take steps forward, to live in alignment with our desires and our dreams and our purpose. And that's where we then begin to move out of surviving and into thriving, and living life to the fullest extent that we can. And there's always more.
Totally. Yeah. It all starts with that fork in the road. So I can't help but ask, what will people continue to experience if they don't do this inner work, if they don't take that step, and what becomes possible when they do?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think, and I want to say that there's no judgment, because some people are very content with where they are, and you can kind of predict what life is going to be like, right? By your past and how you've acted before. So I think if people don't do this work, they may, if they feel stuck, they may continue to feel stuck. But if they feel content and with where they are, they would feel that. But there would be, life is kind of in their comfort zone. Life is kind of in what they know it to be. I think when people actually choose, and if that's not okay, then you can choose the work to do the deeper work. And so I think what people can expect if they do the deeper work is those patterns start to shift. Those things that we've held on to that maybe had a lot of energy start to lose their power and their oomph, and you begin to become more open, and you can hear your intuition more. You can make decisions for yourself, and become empowered. That's what people can expect, and they can expect that shift happens and sticks.
Hmm.
So it's, it stays, it stays. The transformation stays. That's what people can expect from doing this work. I've had so many people who have got into a new job or a new relationship, and it's totally different. And they're asking questions like, wow, this is different. Like, how do I act now? How do I, um, and it becomes like this, like, exploration that is really fun, because you now realize that who was driving the seat kind of got in out of the seat, and you become the driver, and you can be kind of create your life that aligns with what it is you want to create, because all of those old patterns and the things that were keeping us stuck dissipate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that you use the word awareness often. Why is awareness so powerful in this healing process?
Yeah, uh, I used to teach skiing, and I used to always say that if you want to change your skiing, you have to be aware of what you're doing. And so a lot of people would come to me to learn how to ski, and they would be totally in the back seat on their heels, and wondering why they kept losing control. And I'd say to them, where are you standing on your skis? And they would say, oh, I'm right in the center of my skis. And they weren't. And as soon as I got them to feel where the center of their skis were, and they got into that place, everything shifted. And then they could say, oh, I was leaning back that turn. That's why I skidded out on that turn. Or, oh, I think I was too far forward. So that's why I think awareness is so important. We can make those micro adjustments with consciousness, like knowing where we are and where we want to get to. And without it, we just we don't know. I mean, it's kind of like we're moving blindly down and then getting frustrated because we can't break out of that pattern.
I love that. Real quick, for people on YouTube, people in the comments, I'd love for everyone to put in the comments, share with us where you are in your life right now. Are you on the back of your skis, or have you found your center of gravity? Are you skiing down with control and confidence? If you are skiing down with control and confidence, put in the comments the moment when you change from being in the back of your skis to, I love that metaphor, to finding that center of gravity. Speaking of that awareness, so it starts with awareness. You see where your energy is off. And I love that it's like behind the skis. It's like you're behind life. Life is taking you
Yeah.
forward without your control, as opposed to you being the engine that's, driving you through it all. So one of the things, the biggest, one of the many things I'm learning from you today is the importance of awareness. It starts with awareness, and this is so fun because I asked you. Quick anecdote. This was maybe months ago. I was thinking how in my own mental health journey, I wish I had some type of tracker of my moods, right? Because as somebody who like I've healed through depression and anxiety and other things, and I almost wish I kept a history of my moods and my quality of life so I can really see it right in front of me, the before and after, because of so much all the change that I've done in the past 5 years or so. So I asked you if you had anything to share with our audience on my YouTube and my subscribers and everyone. And without me even mentioning it, you had this harmonious life tracker, which is literally what I would have wanted like years ago. So tell us about the harmonious life tracker. What is it, and how does it help people start building awareness?
Yes. So it is a monthly life tracker where you can track your emotions and how you physically feel in every day. And I use a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being off the charts awesome and one being not so much. And you track your emotions every day. Like, how much did you feel anger? How much did you feel joy today? How much did you feel peace today? And there's a whole list of emotions. And then also I do it for the physical as well. Like, how did your body feel? How much did you exercise? And I have space. You can add your own things in there. And when you track that day by day, you begin to see patterns. You begin to see like, oh my gosh, I went the whole month and I didn't feel joy once, right? Or if I did, it was not very much. And then can become aware. I think sometimes we move through life, just moving through life and not aware of how we're feeling. We just get the things done. And when we stop to really look at how we're feeling or what we're doing and begin to see it, we can notice our patterns and also know what it is that we want to shift to.
Amazing, amazing. Um, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you so much for sharing this with everyone. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video, or if you're listening to this through a podcast, it'll be a link in the notes below of where you can get this for free from Nicole. It's really helpful. Again, it's the thing I wish I had years ago, and it really will just help you start building awareness of what's going on, what are the energies at play, and then you can start to see what certain things trigger you here and there. And if you make a difference, you'll see how that affects your moods and your quality of life. It's so important. Okay, so for anyone listening who's ready to stop getting in their own way, really start this amazing transformative work, go into this path of self-trust, how can they connect with you and begin this journey?
Yeah, I offer a free clarity call, which is a 15-minute call that we can just talk and discuss and really I can point you in the direction of your own way, or if you're really called to do the work with me, you can book a discovery call, and I'll get into more details of what that looks like and how you can take that next step to do the deeper transformational work. And those are both free calls, and it all starts with a conversation. And really, when I went on my own healing journey, I did whatever called to me, and then I allowed that to lead the way. So I, I'm saying this like there's no pressure on the calls. I'm really here to support you, the client, whoever comes to me, and what's best for you, so we can brainstorm, we can talk about it. I think that's a good step.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I remember meeting my mentor who became my coach, healer, and many things, and it all just started with a conversation. I'll tell that story another time, but it was very transformative for me. And that's such an amazing gift that you're giving to people. I know they're going to have a tremendous amount of value from that. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear from them. So, how can people find you? Let's say people want to, I'm sure people will want to stay in touch with you. I know you have a beautiful Instagram. How can people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, Instagram is one way. That's at nicole.mergis.com. I'm sure you'll probably put that in the show notes as well, uh, Joe. And um, you can also get in touch with me through a link to book an appointment, or download my free tracker that would put you on my mailing list and keep us connected.
Awesome, cool. And then what is the last piece of advice, the ultimate last final thing you'd like to share with our community before we wrap up today?
I think transformation happens in the moments, right? It happens in the moments. It's not something that it's not something that happens all at once. It happens in the moments that we make that different choice. It happens in the moments when we think that different thought, or it happens in the moments when we can feel the emotion fully. Those are the transformational moments. And when those shift, everything changes. And the other thing I would say is that what has happened to you is is not who you are.
Mm.
That it is most likely a protective response that kept you safe at one point, but now needs to shift and do something different so it can allow the change to happen within you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Nicole, thank you so much for coming today and sharing all of that wisdom. There are so many nuggets of gold in this episode we've had. I recommend all my subscribers watch this 3 more times, listen to it in your sleep. Really, change is possible. Nicole, you're proof of it. Your clients are proof of it. There's so much to be done and so much that we can do for ourselves and for the world. So thank you so much
Absolutely.
for sharing all that amazing stuff with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been really great. Thank you.
To connect with Nicole and her amazing work, make sure to check out the links in the description below and follow her on Instagram. Make sure to subscribe so that you can meet more amazing mystical misfits jailbreaking their reality. If you're interested in more about personal growth, healing, mysticism, click this playlist here. If you're interested in more about learning tarot, click this playlist here. And I look forward to seeing you in the next wormhole. Much love.